The alarm went off at exactly 3 in the morning. Dr. Alina Brooks rolled over in her bed and stared at the ceiling of her small quarters. She had been expecting this wake-up call for weeks now, but that did not make it any easier to hear. The computer voice was calm and emotionless as it repeated the same message over and over. Warning. Gravitational anomaly detected. All science staff report to main laboratory immediately. Alina pushed herself out of bed and grabbed her uniform from the chair where she had left it the night before. Her hands were shaking slightly as she pulled on her clothes. She had spent the last 3 months studying the numbers, running the calculations over and over until her eyes burned from staring at the screens. Every time she checked her work, the answer came out the same. Something terrible was going to happen, and it was going to happen soon. The hallways of Research Station Titan were empty and quiet as Alina made her way to the laboratory. Her footsteps echoed off the metal walls. She passed by windows that looked out into space, where millions of stars sparkled against the black void. Out there somewhere, beyond what human eyes could see, the Velkari Empire was continuing its work. They had no idea what they were doing to the fabric of space itself. When Alina entered the main lab, she found the rest of her team already there. Dr. Marcus Webb stood at the central console, his face pale in the blue glow of the holographic displays. Next to him was Dr. Sophie Ramirez, the team's expert on quantum mechanics. She was typing rapidly on her keyboard, pulling up data streams that filled the air with floating numbers and graphs. "How bad is it?" Alina asked as she joined them. Marcus looked at her with tired eyes. He had not slept well in days, she could tell. None of them had. "It's worse than we thought. The readings we're getting now show the cascade has already begun. We're looking at maybe 5 months before the critical point, maybe less, 5 months." Alina felt her stomach drop. They had predicted 6 months in their last calculation. The timeline was speeding up. She moved closer to the displays and studied the information flowing across them. The numbers painted a picture of disaster that was building momentum with every passing day. Sophie spoke without looking up from her work. "The Velkari harvesting stations are running at full capacity. They're pulling dark matter out of the cosmic web at an incredible rate. Every ton they remove makes the gravitational field more unstable." "Show me the projection," Alina said quietly. Marcus touched a control and the main hologram shifted. Now it showed a 3-dimensional map of the local region of space. At the center was a bright blue dot marking the location of Kethalar, the Velkari homeworld. Surrounding it in a wide sphere were dozens of smaller dots, each one representing a massive harvesting facility where the Velkari extracted dark matter to power their civilization. "Watch what happens when we run the simulation forward," Marcus said. He pressed another button and the display began to move. The blue dot at the center started to pulse, slowly at first, then faster and faster. The space around it began to distort, bending inward like water circling a drain. Harvesting stations flickered and disappeared one by one as they were consumed by the growing gravitational well. Then came the final moment. The blue dot collapsed into itself, shrinking down to a single point of infinite density. A black hole. Everything within 50 light-years was pulled into it. Planets, stars, space stations, everything. The Velkari homeworld vanished completely, crushed out of existence by forces beyond imagination. "How many?" Alina asked. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Population estimates for the affected zone are around 300 billion, Sophie answered. "That's counting the homeworld, the inner colonies, the orbital habitats, everything. 300 billion lives." The room fell silent. 300 billion. Alina tried to wrap her mind around that number, but it was too large. She thought about Earth, with its 8 billion people. Imagine wiping out Earth's entire population 37 times over. That was what they were talking about. "We have to warn them again," Alina said. "We have to make them understand." "We've already tried," Marcus said, frustration clear in his voice. 15 times, Alina. We've sent 15 separate warnings to the Velkari Science Council. Every single one has been rejected." "Then we try a 16th time," Alina shot back. "And a 17th. We keep trying until they listen." Sophie finally looked up from her screen. "They won't listen, Alina. You know why? Because we're human. To them, we're children playing with toys we don't understand. Our entire civilization is only a few hundred years old. The Velkari Empire has existed for 10,000 years. They think their scientists know better than us about everything. But we're right, Alina said. The math doesn't lie. The observations don't lie. We can prove everything we're saying. Being right doesn't matter if nobody will listen to you, Marcus said sadly. Alina walked over to one of the windows and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, billions of people were going about their daily lives. They were working, eating, laughing, loving, living. They had no idea that their world was built on a foundation that was crumbling beneath them, and the people who could save them were too proud to hear the warning. There has to be another way, she said. Someone who will listen. Someone who has the power to stop this. The door to the laboratory slid open. Commander Jack Newman entered, followed by Lieutenant Nicole Carter, the station's communications officer. Jack was a tall man with gray hair and a face lined by years of service in the exploration fleet. He had commanded Titan Station for 5 years and had never failed to support his science team, even when their work led to uncomfortable conclusions. "I got your alert," Jack said. "How bad is it?" Marcus replayed the simulation for him. Jack watched in silence, his expression growing darker with each passing second. When it finished, he let out a long breath. 5 months, he said. It was not a question. "Give or take," Sophie confirmed. Jack turned to Nicole. "How many attempts have we made to contact the Velkari government?" 15 official transmissions to the Science Council, Nicole replied. She pulled up a list on her data pad. Plus 7 attempts to reach individual scientists, 4 messages to their diplomatic corps, and 2 emergency broadcasts to their military command. All were either ignored or rejected with standard automated responses. "What were the reasons given for rejection?" Jack asked. Nicole scrolled through the responses. "The Science Council said our findings were based on incomplete data and primitive methodology. The diplomatic corps said the matter was not appropriate for diplomatic channels. The military command said civilian concerns were outside their jurisdiction, and the individual scientists never responded at all." Jack shook his head in disbelief. "They're going to die because they're too proud to admit a younger species might be right about something. Pride has killed more civilizations than any weapon ever invented," Alina said quietly. "There might be one option left," Nicole said. "I've been doing research on Velkari political structure. Their Science Council is powerful, but they're not the final authority on everything. There's a position called the High Advisor. It's someone who serves directly under the Emperor and has the authority to override council decisions in matters of planetary security." "And you think this High Advisor might listen when nobody else will?" Marcus asked skeptically. "The current High Advisor is someone named Velthara," Nicole explained. "She has a reputation for being more open-minded than most high-ranking Velkari. She spent time studying other species' scientific methods. Some of the more traditional Velkari actually criticize her for it." Alina felt a spark of hope. "How do we reach her?" "That's the problem," Nicole said. "She's on Kethalar itself. Getting a message through to her means going through the same communication systems that have been blocking us, but there might be a way around it." She pulled up a star chart. "There's a Velkari research outpost here about 2 weeks away at maximum speed. It's run by a scientist named Dr. Kalen. He publishes papers that cite human research sometimes. He might be willing to help us get a message to Velthara." Jack studied the chart for a long moment. 2 weeks there, 2 weeks back. That gives us only 3 months to work with once we return, assuming they agree to help us. "It's a risk," Alina admitted. "But what choice do we have? If we stay here and keep sending messages that get ignored, we're just watching the clock run out." Jack looked at each of them in turn. "I need to know you're all committed to this. We'll be leaving the station under the command of the assistant crew. We'll be traveling through space controlled by an empire that doesn't particularly like us. And even if we succeed in delivering our message, there's no guarantee anyone will act on it." "I'm in," Alina said immediately. "Me too," Sophie added. Marcus nodded. "We've come this far, might as well see it through." "Then we leave in 6 hours," Jack decided. "Nicole, prepare the shuttle and file a flight plan. Alina, Sophie, Marcus, I want a complete data package ready to present. Everything we have organized so clearly that even a child could understand the danger. We get one shot at this. Let's make it count. The next 6 hours passed in a blur of activity. Alina worked with her team to compile their findings into a presentation that would be impossible to dismiss. They included the raw data, the mathematical proofs, the observational evidence, and the predictive models. They created visualizations that showed exactly what would happen and when. As she worked, Alina thought about all the people who would die if they failed. She thought about the Velkari children who would never grow up, the artists whose work would be lost forever, the families that would be torn apart. The weight of it pressed down on her shoulders like a physical thing. The shuttle was small but fast, designed for quick trips between stations and planets. Jack piloted it himself, pushing the engines as hard as he dared. They traveled through the quiet of space, passing by distant stars and nebulas that glowed with colors no Earth-based rainbow had ever shown. On the 5th day of their journey, they picked up a news broadcast from the Velkari Information Network. Alina listened to it through the translation software, her heart sinking as she heard the announcer's cheerful voice. Emperor Kethmer has announced the expansion of the dark matter harvesting program, the announcer said proudly. 10 new extraction facilities will be constructed over the next year, bringing clean energy to millions more citizens across the empire. Scientists from the Imperial Energy Commission say the new facilities will increase output by 30% with no environmental impact. Alina closed her eyes. They were making it worse. Every new facility meant more dark matter being pulled from the cosmic web, more instability building in the gravitational field. The timeline might shrink even further. We have to go faster, she said to Jack. We're already pushing the engines beyond their recommended limits, Jack replied. If we go any faster, we risk a breakdown. Then we don't get there at all. Alina knew he was right, but the knowledge did not make her feel any better. Every hour that passed was an hour closer to disaster. Every minute the Velkari spent expanding their harvesting operation was another minute stolen from the timeline. On the 12th day, they finally approached the research outpost. It was a small facility, nothing like the massive installations that orbited the major Velkari worlds. Just a cluster of modules connected by transit tubes, hanging in space near a red dwarf star. Jack sent a communication request. They waited in tense silence for a response. Minutes passed, then an hour. Alina began to worry that they would be ignored here too, that their desperate journey would end in another rejection. Then the communication system crackled to life. A voice spoke in the melodic, bird-like language of the Velkari. The translation software converted it to English a moment later. Human vessel, this is Dr. Kalin. I must admit, I am surprised to see visitors so far from your home space. What brings you to this remote location? Jack responded carefully. Dr. Kalin, we have urgent information regarding a threat to the Velkari homeworld. We need to speak with you in person. It's a matter of planetary survival. There was a pause, then. That is quite a claim. Very well, you may dock at Port 3. I will meet you there. The docking procedure was smooth and efficient. When the airlock opened, Alina got her first look at a Velkari in person. Dr. Kalin was tall and thin, with skin that shimmered in shades of green and gold. His eyes were large and dark, set in a face that seemed both alien and somehow expressive in ways Alina could understand. Welcome to Outpost 7, Kalin said in perfect English. His voice was softer than it had sounded over the radio. Please, follow me to my laboratory. We can speak privately there. They walked through corridors that were designed for someone taller than humans. The ceiling was high and the doorways were wide. The walls were covered in flowing script that Alina recognized as Velkari mathematics. This was clearly a place where serious scientific work was done. Kalin's laboratory was a large room filled with equipment that hummed and blinked with activity. Holographic displays floated in the air, showing complex equations and star charts. The Velkari scientist gestured for them to sit at a table near one of the windows. Now, Kalin said, settling into his own chair. Tell me about this threat you have discovered. Alina took a deep breath and began. She explained their research, walking Kalin through the observations that had first caught their attention. She showed him the data they had collected, the patterns they had identified in the gravitational field around the Velkari core worlds. Sophie took over next, explaining the quantum mechanics behind the cascade effect. She used Kalen's own holographic system to display their mathematical models, showing how the removal of dark matter was creating instabilities that fed on themselves. Marcus presented the predictive models, demonstrating how the collapse would occur. He showed the timeline, the affected zone, the projected casualties. Through it all, Kalen listened in silence. His expression was difficult to read, but he asked questions that showed he was following their logic. He requested to see certain calculations repeated, asked for clarification on specific points, examined their raw data with careful attention. When they finished, Kalen stood and walked to one of his own displays. He pulled up files that showed Velkari research on dark matter extraction. Alina watched as he began running comparisons, checking their human models against the official Velkari scientific data. The silence stretched on for what felt like hours but was probably only 20 minutes. Finally, Kalen turned back to face them. His skin had shifted to a blue-gray color that the translation guide on Alina's data pad said indicated deep concern. "You are correct," he said quietly. "Your analysis is sound. The cascade effect is real and it is already underway." Alina felt relief flood through her. Someone believed them. Finally, someone with the knowledge to understand the danger was taking them seriously. "Will you help us?" she asked. "Will you help us get this information to someone who can stop it?" Kalen sat down slowly. "You must understand something about Velkari society. We are not like humans. We do not value new ideas or outside perspectives. We value tradition, proven methods, the wisdom of our elders. For someone like me to challenge the Imperial Science Council is to risk my entire career, my reputation, my place in society." 300 billion lives, Marcus said bluntly. "That's what we're talking about. Is your career really more important than that?" Kalen's skin flickered through several colors. Anger, Alina thought, mixed with shame. "You are right to challenge me. My concerns about reputation are small and selfish in the face of such catastrophe. I will help you. I will send a message to High Advisor Velthara. She is one of the few members of the Imperial government who might listen to unconventional evidence." "Thank you," Alina said. "Thank you so much." "Do not thank me yet," Kalen warned. "Getting a message to Velthara is one thing, convincing her to act is another, and even if she believes us, she may not be able to overcome the political resistance. The dark matter harvesting program represents enormous economic interests. Powerful people benefit from it continuing. But we have to try," Alina insisted. "Yes," Kalen agreed. "We have to try." Kalen worked through the night, composing a message that would carry weight in the Imperial court. He explained his own credentials, his research, his standing in the scientific community. He vouched for the accuracy of the human findings and added his own analysis confirming their conclusions. Alina watched him work and felt a strange mixture of hope and fear. This was their best chance, maybe their only chance. If Velthara ignored them, if she sided with the Science Council, then there was nothing left to do but watch the disaster unfold. "The message is sent," Kalen finally announced. "Now we wait for a response." The waiting was torture. Hours passed with no reply, then a full day. Alina could not eat, could not sleep. She paced the small quarters Kalen had provided for them, running through the numbers in her head over and over. On the second day, the response came. Kalen summoned them to his laboratory with an urgent message. When they arrived, his skin was showing colors Alina had not seen before. The translation guide said it was a combination of excitement and fear. "Velthara has responded," Kalen said. "She wants to meet with us, all of us. She is sending a ship to collect us and bring us to Kethalar immediately." "She believes us?" Sophie asked. "She says she wants to examine the evidence in person," Kalen replied. "Whether she believes us or not, I cannot say, but she is taking this seriously enough to summon us to the homeworld. That is something." The Imperial ship that arrived 2 days later was unlike anything Alina had ever seen. It was massive, easily 100 times the size of their small shuttle. The hull was covered in patterns that seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal. When they boarded it, Alina felt like she was stepping into a palace rather than a spacecraft. The journey to Kethalar took only 3 days. The Imperial ship had engines far more advanced than anything in human space. Alina spent most of the trip reviewing their presentation, making sure every detail was perfect. This was it. Their final chance to save billions of lives. When they entered orbit around Kethalar, Alina pressed her face against a viewport to get her first glimpse of the Velkhari homeworld. It was beautiful beyond words. The continents were covered in cities that gleamed like jewels, connected by transport networks that formed glowing webs across the surface. 3 moons hung in the sky, each one home to its own population of billions, and all of it was doomed unless they could convince one person to act. They were taken to the Imperial Science Complex, a building so tall that its upper floors disappeared into the clouds. High Advisor Velthara met them in a conference room that had windows looking out over the capital city. She was older than Kalen, her skin showing the pale colors that indicated advanced age among the Velkhari, but her eyes were sharp and focused. "I have read your findings," Velthara said without preamble. "I have also consulted with the Science Council. They insist your conclusions are wrong." Alina felt her heart sink, but Velthara continued. "However, I'm not convinced by their reasoning. They dismiss your work because you are human, not because they have actually examined your evidence. That is not science. That is prejudice. So I'm going to give you the opportunity to present your case directly to me. I will evaluate it on its merits alone." For the next 4 hours, Alina and her team presented everything they had discovered. They walked Velthara through every calculation, every observation, every prediction. They showed her the cascade building in the gravitational field. They demonstrated how the timeline was accelerating. They laid out exactly what would happen when the critical point was reached. Velthara asked questions that cut straight to the heart of their methodology. She challenged assumptions, demanded proof for claims, insisted on seeing the raw data behind every conclusion. It was exhausting, but Alina welcomed the scrutiny. This was real scientific review, not the dismissive rejection they had received before. When they finally finished, Velthara sat in silence for a long time. The sunlight streaming through the windows had shifted, painting the room in shades of orange and red. Outside, the city below was beginning to light up for the evening. "Your analysis is correct," Velthara said at last. "The danger is real. The timeline is accurate. If we do not shut down the harvesting program immediately, Kethalar will be destroyed." Alina wanted to collapse with relief. They had done it. They had convinced her. But then Velthara continued, and her next words crushed that relief like an insect. "Unfortunately, my authority is not sufficient to override the Emperor's decision to expand the harvesting program. I can present your findings to him, but I cannot force him to act on them. And I must warn you, the Emperor is heavily influenced by the corporate interests that profit from dark matter extraction. They will fight any attempt to shut down their operations." "But you have to try," Alina said desperately. "You have to make him understand." "I will try," Velthara promised. "I will present your evidence to the Emperor tomorrow, but you must prepare yourselves for the possibility that he will not listen. Political reality often trumps scientific truth." That night, Alina could not sleep. She stood at the window of her guest quarters, looking out at the glittering city below. Billions of people down there, living their lives, unaware that everything they knew might end in a few short months. She thought about her own home, about Earth, and all the people she loved there. If something like this happened to humanity, would they listen to warnings from a more advanced species? Or would human pride be just as deadly as Velkhari arrogance? The answer, she suspected, was not comforting. The morning arrived with artificial sunshine streaming through the windows of Alina's guest quarters. She had not slept at all. Her mind kept racing through scenarios, imagining the conversation that Velthara would have with the Emperor. Would he listen? Would he understand? Or would politics and money win out over science and survival? A soft chime at her door announced a visitor. Alina opened it to find Marcus standing there, looking as exhausted as she felt. His eyes were red and his uniform was wrinkled. "Couldn't sleep either?" he asked. "Not a minute," Alina admitted. "Come in." They sat together by the window, watching the Velkhari capital wake up below them. The city was magnificent in the early light. Towers of crystal and metal reached toward the sky, connected by bridges that seemed to float in the air. Transportation pods zipped along invisible magnetic rails. Millions of people were beginning their day, completely unaware that their world might have only months left. "Do you think we made a difference?" Marcus asked quietly. "Velthara believes us," Alina said. "That's something. A week ago, nobody in this empire would even look at our data. Now the Emperor's top science advisor is presenting it directly to him. But will he act on it? That's the real question." Before Alina could answer, her communicator buzzed. It was a message from Velthara requesting their presence at the Imperial Science Complex immediately. Alina's heart began to race. This was it. They were about to find out if their desperate journey had accomplished anything. The conference room where they met Velthara was different from yesterday. This one was smaller, more private. The High Advisor was already there, along with Dr. Kalen. Both of their expressions were grave. "The Emperor has made his decision," Velthara said as soon as they entered. Her skin had shifted to a dull gray color that Alina had learned meant deep sadness. "He will not shut down the harvesting program." The words hit Alina like a physical blow. "But why? You showed him the evidence. You explained what will happen." "I showed him everything," Velthara confirmed. "I presented your data, I walked him through the mathematics, I demonstrated the inevitability of the collapse. He understood it all perfectly." "Then why won't he act?" Sophie demanded, her voice rising with frustration. "Because the harvesting program generates enormous wealth," Velthara explained. "The corporations that run the facilities have connections throughout the imperial government. They have convinced the Emperor that your predictions are exaggerated. They have their own scientists who claim the harvesting is safe. And most importantly, they have made it clear that shutting down the program would cause economic chaos." "Economic chaos," Alina repeated, her voice hollow. "It's just the complete destruction of your homeworld. The Emperor believes he can thread the needle," Kalen said bitterly. "He has ordered the Science Council to study your findings and recommend safety measures, but he will not halt the expansion. He will not even slow down current operations." Jack, who had been silent until now, spoke up. "How long will this study take?" "Months," Velthara said. "Perhaps a year. The Science Council will form committees, request additional data, debate methodology. By the time they reach any conclusions, it will be far too late." Alina felt sick. They had traveled across space, risked everything to deliver their warning, and it had not been enough. The Velkhari Empire was going to die because its leaders valued profit over survival. "There has to be something else we can do," she said desperately. "Some other avenue we haven't tried." "I have been thinking about this all night," Velthara said. "There is one possibility, but it is dangerous and may not succeed." "Tell us," Alina urged. Velthara pulled up a holographic display showing the network of dark matter harvesting facilities. "The Emperor will not shut down the program voluntarily, but if the facilities themselves were to stop operating, he would have no choice but to face the reality of the situation." "You're talking about sabotage," Jack said carefully. "I am talking about saving my people," Velthara corrected. "The harvesting facilities are automated. They require minimal crew. If key systems were to fail simultaneously across multiple facilities, the program would grind to a halt. It would take months to repair them all. That would give us time to convince the Emperor and the Science Council that the threat is real." "You're asking us to help you destroy Imperial property," Marcus said. "That's an act of war. If we're caught, it would destroy human-Velkhari relations forever." "If we do nothing, there will be no Velkhari left to have relations with," Kalen pointed out. 300 billion lives. That is what we are trying to save." Alina looked at each of her colleagues. She could see the fear in their eyes, but also the determination. They had not come this far to give up now. "What will we need to do?" she asked Velthara. The High Advisor expanded the hologram, zooming in on several key facilities. "There are 12 primary harvesting stations that control the majority of the dark matter extraction. If those 12 were disabled, the entire program would collapse. The remaining stations are too small to cause the gravitational cascade on their own." "How would we disable them?" Sophie asked. "Each facility has a central processing core that manages the dark matter containment fields," Velthara explained. "The cores are protected, but not against someone with proper access codes. I have those codes. Dr. Kalen has expertise in the systems. And you have small, fast ships that can move between facilities without drawing attention." "This is insane," Marcus said, but there was no conviction in his voice. "Yes," Velthara agreed. "It is completely insane. It is also our only chance. I have already resigned my position as High Advisor. When this is done, I will be arrested, tried, and likely executed for treason. But at least my people will be alive to carry out the sentence." The weight of her sacrifice hung in the air. Here was someone willing to give up everything, including her life, to save her civilization. How could they do any less? "We'll need a plan," Jack said quietly. "A good one. If we're going to do this, we do it right." Over the next 2 days, they worked in secret, planning every detail of what they were calling Operation Last Warning. Velthara provided schematics of the harvesting facilities and access codes. Kalen explained the technical details of the containment systems. Alina and her team calculated exactly how much disruption they would need to cause to shut down the cascade without causing immediate catastrophic failures. The plan was complex. They would split into 3 teams, each taking a shuttle equipped with Velkari transponders that would identify them as authorized maintenance vessels. Each team would visit 4 facilities, inserting a specialized virus into the processing cores that would cause systematic failures over the course of several hours. By the time anyone realized what was happening, all 12 facilities would be offline. "The key is timing," Kalen explained as they reviewed the plan one final time. "The virus needs to activate simultaneously across all facilities. If even one station realizes what is happening early, they could alert the others and prevent the shutdown." "What about the crews on the facilities?" Nicole asked. "Will they be in danger when the systems fail?" "The failures will be controlled," Velthara assured her. "The dark matter will be safely vented into space. The crews will have time to evacuate to the emergency pods. There should be no casualties, should be." Alina noticed the qualifier but did not comment on it. They were taking enormous risks based on calculations and predictions. There were no guarantees. The night before the operation, Alina found herself unable to rest again. She wandered the halls of the building where they were staying, her mind churning with doubts and fears. What if they failed? What if they succeeded but it was not enough? What if the Emperor still refused to see reason? She found Velthara standing on a balcony, looking out at the city she was trying to save. The older Velkari turned as Alina approached. "You should be resting," Velthara said gently. "Tomorrow will be difficult." "I can't stop thinking about all the things that could go wrong," Alina admitted. "Neither can I," Velthara said. "But I have learned something in my long life. When faced with certain disaster, even a small chance of success is worth taking. We may fail tomorrow. The Emperor may still refuse to act even if we succeed. But we will have tried everything in our power. That is all anyone can do." "Aren't you afraid?" Alina asked. "Of what will happen to you?" "Terrified," Velthara said simply. "But I am more afraid of standing by and doing nothing while my world dies. I have lived a long life, Dr. Brooks. I have seen wonders and achieved things I am proud of, but none of that will matter if I let fear stop me from trying to save what I love." Alina stood beside her, looking out at the glittering city. "We're going to make this work," she said with more confidence than she felt. "Yes," Velthara agreed. "We are." The morning of the operation dawned clear and bright. The 3 teams gathered in a private hangar far from the main spaceport. Jack would lead Team 1 with Sophie. Marcus would lead Team 2 with Nicole. Alina would lead Team 3 with Kalen. Velthara would coordinate from a secure location, monitoring their progress and ready to intervene if something went wrong. "Remember," Jack said as they did a final equipment check, "we are maintenance crews running routine inspections. Keep your communications minimal. Don't draw attention. Get in, insert the virus, get out. Simple." "Nothing about this is simple," Marcus muttered, but he was smiling slightly. They launched in sequence, each shuttle following a different route to avoid suspicion. Alina's first target was Harvesting Station 7, located in a quiet region of space about 4 hours away. Kalen sat beside her in the co-pilot seat, his skin shifting through nervous colors. "Have you ever committed treason before?" he asked suddenly. Alina laughed despite the tension. "First time, you." "First time," Kalen confirmed. "I always imagined I would spend my final years teaching at the Imperial Academy, respected and comfortable. Now I will be lucky if I am not thrown in prison for the rest of my life." "Do you regret it?" Alina asked. Helping us. Kalen was quiet for a moment. No, he said finally. I regret that it was necessary. I regret that my own people were too proud to listen to your warnings. But helping you, that is the first truly important thing I have done in decades. Whatever happens, I can face it knowing I tried to make a difference. Harvesting Station 7 appeared on their sensors right on schedule. It was a massive structure, a sphere nearly a mile in diameter covered in sensor arrays and containment field generators. At its heart was the processing core that managed the delicate work of extracting dark matter from the fabric of space itself. Maintenance shuttle to Station 7, Alina said, keeping her voice calm and professional. We're here for the scheduled core inspection. Station 7 to maintenance shuttle, a bored voice replied. Transmit your authorization codes. Kalen sent the codes Velthara had provided. There was a pause that seemed to stretch forever. Alina's hands were sweating on the controls. Codes confirmed, the voice said. Proceed to docking port 12. Try not to take too long. We're running at full capacity today. They docked smoothly and made their way through the facility's corridors. The few crew members they encountered barely glanced at them. As Velthara had predicted, these stations ran mostly on automation. The skeleton crews were there mainly to handle emergencies. The processing core was located in a heavily shielded chamber at the center of the facility. Kalen interfaced his data pad with the control systems while Alina kept watch. The virus they were installing was elegant in its simplicity. It would wait exactly 6 hours, then begin causing cascading failures in the containment field stabilizers. The system would appear to be experiencing mechanical problems rather than sabotage. Done, Kalen said quietly. 3 minutes 40 seconds, we should leave. They made their way back to the shuttle, forcing themselves to walk calmly despite the urge to run. As they undocked and set course for the next facility, Alina allowed herself to breathe again. 1 down, she said. 3 to go. Second and third facilities went just as smoothly. By the time they reached the 4th station, Alina was almost starting to relax. Almost. But as they approached Harvesting Station 3, their communication system crackled to life with an unexpected transmission. Attention all harvesting facilities, an authoritative voice announced. We have reports of unauthorized access to Station 9. All facilities are to go on high alert. All incoming vessels are to be thoroughly searched before being allowed to dock. This is not a drill. Alina's blood ran cold. Station 9 was one of Marcus's targets. Something had gone wrong. What do we do? Kalen asked, his skin flashing through colors that indicated panic. Alina's mind raced. They had 3 facilities completed, but they needed all 12 for the plan to work. If they turned back now, the whole operation would fail. We go forward, she decided, but carefully. She changed their approach vector, bringing them in from a different angle. When Station 3 hailed them, she put extra authority in her voice. Station 3, this is Priority Maintenance Alpha. We have orders to inspect your core systems immediately in light of the security alert. Stand by to receive emergency authorization codes. She nodded to Kalen, who transmitted a different set of codes, ones Velthara had marked as emergency use only. Another agonizing pause. Maintenance Alpha, you are cleared for immediate docking. Port 7. Security teams will escort you to the core. This was going to be more complicated. They docked and were immediately met by 4 armed Velkari security officers. Alina kept her expression calm and professional. We need to verify the integrity of your processing core, she told them. The unauthorized access at Station 9 may have been an attempt to compromise the containment systems. We're checking all facilities. The security chief looked skeptical. Our systems show no anomalies. That's exactly what they would show if someone had inserted sophisticated malware, Kalen said, his voice steady despite his obvious nervousness. The whole point of a good virus is that it's invisible until it activates. The security chief considered this, then nodded. Very well, but my team stays with you. They made their way to the core chamber with the security team watching their every move. Alina's heart was pounding so hard she was sure everyone could hear it. Kalen connected his data pad to the control systems and began running what looked like a diagnostic scan. Interesting, he said after a moment. I'm detecting some unusual patterns in the field stabilizer subroutines. What kind of patterns? the security chief demanded. Could be nothing, Kalen said. Could be evidence of tampering. I'll need to run a deeper analysis. His fingers moved across the data pad, and Alina knew he was actually installing the virus while pretending to investigate. Yes, there's definitely something here. Looks like someone tried to install unauthorized code. Can you remove it? The security chief asked. Already done, Kalen lied smoothly. Your systems are clean now. You'll want to run a full security audit of your access logs to see if anyone else has been here recently. They made their escape from Station 3, their shuttle pulling away just as the security chief began asking more detailed questions. As soon as they were clear, Alina contacted Jack and Marcus on a secure channel. Team 1 here, Jack responded immediately. We've completed all 4 targets. What happened at Station 3? Team 2 had a problem, Marcus's voice came through, sounding stressed. One of the crew members at Station 9 recognized Nicole. Apparently they met at some scientific conference years ago, started asking questions. We had to abort and leave. So we only have 11 facilities instead of 12, Alina said, calculating quickly. Is that enough? There was a pause while someone ran the numbers. Then Velthara's voice came through. 11 facilities will significantly reduce the dark matter extraction rate, she said. It may be enough to prevent the cascade or at least slow it down considerably, but we cannot be certain. It's what we have, Jack said firmly. Let's get out of here before security tightens any further. The 3 shuttles regrouped at a remote location far from the Velkhari core worlds. They had barely landed when news broadcasts began reporting massive system failures at harvesting facilities across the Empire. The virus was working exactly as designed. Within hours, the story dominated every news outlet. Engineers reported that the failures seemed to be spreading through the containment systems in ways they could not explain. Emergency crews were being dispatched, but with 11 facilities offline simultaneously, there were not enough technicians to handle all the repairs. The Emperor is addressing the nation, Sophie said, pulling up a live feed. Emperor Kethmer appeared on the screen, his skin showing colors that indicated barely controlled rage. Citizens of the Empire, we face an unprecedented crisis. Multiple harvesting facilities have experienced catastrophic failures. While we investigate the cause, I am temporarily suspending all dark matter extraction operations until we can guarantee the safety of our systems. He's spinning it as a safety measure, Marcus observed, trying to save face. I don't care how he spins it as long as the facilities stay offline, Alina said. Velthara, are you tracking the gravitational readings? Yes, the High Advisor confirmed. The cascade effect is already beginning to stabilize. The removal of that much extraction capacity has relieved pressure on the gravitational field. If the facilities remain offline for at least 3 months, the immediate danger will pass. They had done it. Against all odds, they had actually done it. But their relief was short-lived. Within 24 hours, Imperial investigators announced that the failures were not accidental. Someone had deliberately sabotaged the facilities. A massive investigation was launched. Velthara sent them an urgent message telling them to leave Velkhari space immediately. They're looking for saboteurs, she warned. It will not take them long to trace the maintenance shuttles. You need to go now while you still can. What about you? Alina asked. And Kalen. We will face the consequences of our actions, Velthara said calmly. We knew the risks when we began this, but you are not Velkhari, you are guests in our space. I will not let you be punished for trying to save us from ourselves. We could claim asylum somewhere, Kalen suggested. The outer colonies are more independent. They might protect us. No, Velthara said firmly. If we run, we confirm our guilt and lose any moral authority we have. We must stay and face the Emperor. Someone needs to explain why this was necessary. Someone needs to make sure the facilities stay offline long enough for the danger to pass. Alina wanted to argue, but she knew Velthara was right. The Velkhari scientist had made her choice. Now Alina and her team had to make theirs. They fled Velkhari space aboard their own shuttle, pushing the engines to maximum speed. Behind them, they could see Imperial patrol ships beginning a systematic search of the region. It was going to be close. We're receiving a transmission, Nicole reported. It's on all frequencies. The Emperor is offering a reward for information about the saboteurs. How much? Marcus asked. Enough to make anyone rich for life, Nicole said quietly. They really want to find whoever did this. They made it across the border into neutral space with only hours to spare. From there, they transmitted all their data to human authorities, explaining what had happened and why. The response was mixed. Some praised them for preventing a catastrophe. Others condemned them for committing what amounted to an act of terrorism against a sovereign nation. 3 days later, they learned that Velthara and Kalen had been arrested. The charges were treason, sabotage, and conspiracy with a foreign power. The trial would be public and swift. Alina watched the trial proceedings from the safety of human space. Velthara stood before the imperial court with her head held high, her skin showing colors of pride and defiance. Yes, I organized the sabotage of the harvesting facilities, she told the court. Yes, I worked with human scientists to carry out this plan. And I would do it again without hesitation. The humans came to us with evidence of an existential threat. They tried to warn us through proper channels. They were ignored, dismissed, mocked. So I took the action necessary to save my people, even knowing it would cost me everything. The prosecutor was relentless. You betrayed your emperor. You destroyed imperial property worth billions. You conspired with aliens against your own kind. I saved 300 billion lives, Velthara countered. Check the gravitational readings yourself. The cascade has stopped. The danger has passed. If the harvesting had continued for another month, we would all be dead right now. Every single person in this courtroom, everyone watching this broadcast, everyone on this planet, dead. The trial lasted 2 weeks. In the end, Velthara and Kalen were found guilty on all charges. The sentence was life imprisonment. But something strange happened in the days following the verdict. Scientists across the empire began reviewing the data that Velthara had presented at trial. They ran their own calculations and confirmed that the humans had been right all along. The cascade had been real. The threat had been genuine. Public opinion began to shift. At first slowly, then rapidly. People demanded to know why the Science Council had dismissed the human warnings. Why the Emperor had valued corporate profits over planetary safety. Why it had taken an act of sabotage to save them. Protests erupted across Kethalar. The Emperor was forced to order a complete review of the harvesting program. The corporations that had pushed for expansion saw their stock prices collapse as investors realized how close they had come to losing everything. 6 months after the trial, the Emperor issued a stunning announcement. He was granting full pardons to Velthara and Kalen. More than that, he was creating a new position, Director of Interspecies Scientific Cooperation. And he was offering that position to Velthara. It seems, Velthara said in her first press conference after being released from prison, that sometimes you have to break the law to uphold the truth. I am grateful to the Emperor for his wisdom in recognizing this. And I am grateful to the human scientists who risked everything to warn us, even when we were too proud to listen. She looked directly into the camera, and Alina knew the next words were meant for her. Dr. Brooks, Dr. Webb, Dr. Ramirez, Commander Newman, Lieutenant Carter, if you are watching this, please know that the Velkhari people owe you a debt we can never repay. You tried to save us when we would not save ourselves. You committed crimes in the name of preserving life. You are heroes, whether your own people recognize it or not. Alina watched the broadcast from her quarters on Titan Station, tears streaming down her face. They had done it. Against all odds, despite every obstacle, they had actually saved 300 billion lives. The aftermath was complicated. The human government eventually agreed not to press charges against Alina and her team, largely because the Velkhari Empire was now speaking out publicly in their defense. Velthara used her new position to establish formal scientific exchange programs between humans and Velkhari. The two civilizations that had barely acknowledged each other before were now working together on dozens of projects. A year after the sabotage, Alina received an invitation to visit Kethalar again, this time as an honored guest. When she arrived, she found that a memorial had been erected in the capital city. It showed a human and a Velkhari standing together, looking up at the stars. The inscription read, in memory of those who speak truth to power and those who listen. Velthara met her at the memorial with Kalen beside her. The older Velkari's skin showed warm, happy colors. "Thank you for coming," Velthara said. "I wanted you to see what your courage has created." "I was terrified the entire time," Alina admitted. "I wasn't sure we were doing the right thing." "Courage is not the absence of fear," Velthara said. "It is acting despite fear. You and your team did what needed to be done, knowing the risks. That is the definition of heroism." They stood together looking at the memorial, and Alina thought about how close it had all come to disaster. If they had given up after the first rejections, if they had not found Kalen, if Velthara had not been willing to risk everything, so many points where it could have gone wrong. "What happens now?" Alina asked. "With the harvesting program, we are developing new extraction methods that account for the cascade effect," Kalen explained. "Much slower, much more carefully monitored. It will take us years to reach the same output levels, but we will do it safely this time. And we will be consulting with human scientists every step of the way." "Your people taught us a valuable lesson," Velthara added. "Pride and arrogance are luxuries no civilization can afford. The universe does not care how old your empire is or how advanced your technology might be. The laws of physics apply equally to everyone. Ignore them at your peril." Alina looked up at the memorial, at the human and Velkari figures standing together. "Maybe that is what we were meant to learn from all this. That survival requires cooperation, that we are stronger together than apart, that listening to voices different from our own is not weakness but wisdom. A lesson the entire galaxy would benefit from learning," Velthara agreed. As Alina prepared to return to human space, she reflected on everything that had happened. They had started this journey simply trying to warn another species of danger. They had ended it by transforming the relationship between two civilizations. The Velkari had learned humility. Humanity had learned that they had valuable knowledge to contribute, even when facing more advanced societies. The Galactic Empire had ignored their warnings, and their homeworld had nearly been destroyed. But from that near catastrophe had emerged something unexpected: friendship, cooperation, and a new understanding that no species, no matter how powerful, had all the answers. It was, Alina thought as her shuttle carried her away from Kethaler, perhaps the most important discovery of all.